Hello there my dear friends, and welcome back to another Star Wars video. It is I coming at you once again, your friend, and your favourite galactic hostess, Star Wars Meg. And today we are breaking down Maul Shadow Lord episodes 5 and 6, Inquisition, and Night of the Hunted. And with just 4 episodes left, it's very clear the show is headed towards an insane crescendo. The Empire has finally arrived on Janx, after Two Boots contacted them to deal with the Maul situation. And this is where we meet a certain Lieutenant Blake, who is now in control of operations, and as is characteristic for the dehumanizing regime run by the Sith, he's not exactly been subtle. But Blake has not just come alone with stormtroopers. Joining him is Marok, the Inquisitor who later appears in Ahsoka's first season. More on him in just a moment. I do have a lot to say about him, so do stay tuned. But Lieutenant Blake, in typical Imperial fashion, begins through enforcing punishment, interrogating and reprimanding those who withheld information about the fugitive. And at this point, at the beginning of episode 5, they don't know about the 2 Jedi who survived Order 66. They're just there to capture Maul. The first to be interrogated is Klyce, and the most ominous thing about that interrogation is she never comes back, as she has been, quote, permanently transferred. And while to some that might sound innocent, it's the Galactic Empire we're talking about. There is no way she's returning to Janx. Our main hero workaholic cop Brandon Lawson is also interrogated, but is later let go. But things are about to get so much worse when his son Riley allows the Jedi Iko Diodaki and his Padawan Devon to take refuge in their home. They saw the Empire land on the planet, and they knew that soon enough they would be hunted. And just a little side note, a week ago I made a prediction which just came to fruition. Devon is starting to resent the life of a Jedi. A life on the run is not what she was promised. Staying hidden after the purge is exhausting, and she feels as though their Jedi powers and abilities are being wasted. And along the same lines, especially by the end of episode 6, Devon has become increasingly trusting of Maul, although her Jedi instincts try to fight this urge. We're slowly starting to move in the direction of her becoming his apprentice, and now she's witnessed that he might be a useful ally. But I'm sure Master Diodaki disapproves. I think at some point Devon is gonna have to make a choice. But now we come on to Marok. One of the best bits of writing in these episodes is that for once, the Inquisitor doesn't just show up and find their target. We finally see some hunting and some detective work. It wasn't just easy and convenient. This has been a big criticism with other Inquisitors, in Tales of the Empire, even in shows I love like Rebels. They often find the Jedi as soon as they land, and the great thing about this approach is it didn't waste any time. If anything, it made Marok so much scarier and more intimidating. And a huge shout out to the writers for including psychometry. This is where a Force user acquires information by connecting with an object or a place, just by touching it or entering it. Essentially, they get to feel its history. So Marok finds out that Maul is not the only Force user on Janx, but before getting to the big jewels in episode 6, I want to break down where I'm at in terms of Marok's importance. We've spent a lot of time talking about this, especially in 2023 when Ahsoka came out, but Maul Shadow Lord is giving us so many clues. This is an Inquisitor who has to die in this series. I think there was a TV spot that showed that Maul is going to kill him, but he has to die, because later on in Ahsoka, it's a revived version of him. He was revived by Morgan Elsbeth and the Great Mothers, but soon enough, he is killed again, this time by Ahsoka. Do you guys remember that green smoke emanated from his torso, in a very similar way to Savage Opress, Maul's brother? But I'm starting to get the impression that in this show, earlier in the timeline during his peak, he's one of the Empire's most valuable resources. Why do I say this? Because he was sent alone. Vader has full faith that he's strong enough to complete the mission solo. In terms of lore surrounding the Inquisitorius, this notion of how many Inquisitors are sent is canon. In the next 2 episodes, the Inquisitor known as the 11th brother is going to join him. That's the Inquisitor from Tales of the Jedi. But initially, to suss out the situation on Janx, to see if the rumors are true that Maul is still alive, they only sent the one. And this is where his title is very, very important. Marok is the first brother. There was a bit of a mix-up in one of the books, but it's now been confirmed that Marok is the first brother. The Grand Inquisitor is also very important, but in terms of this show, Lucasfilm is trying to highlight Marok, There is a reason Filoni brought him back. Some fans are convinced he's Darth Vader's secret apprentice, a canon version of Starkiller from The Force Unleashed. And did you know that this episode has an Easter egg that harkens back to those games? Marok's Force Push has the same sound effect as Galen Marok's Force Push. Given Sam Witwer's involvement, these callbacks are expected, but I wonder if they actually mean something beyond being just a fun member berry. And here's my theory. Palpatine had been planning the Empire for a very long time. Darth Sidious is the one who executed the Sith Grand Plan, and so the idea for the Inquisitorius is also quite old. Former Jedi being used as disposable cogs, assassins for the Sith, but never true Sith. And so if I was Palpatine and looking for the best fighters, I would model them after my own apprentice, which before Vader and before Tyrannus was Maul, a ferocious, agile warrior. Obviously, they were never going to reach the level of Maul, but his style of fighting and his dual blade were the prototype, whereas the Inquisitors were the mass-produced, nerfed down, disposable versions. And it should be said, and this is something reiterated in the expanded universe, Maul's Phantom Menace death was something Sidious was not expecting. And so, when he was planning his empire, with his real Jedi Hunter dead, the best of the best, he modelled the Inquisitors after him. And this is a crazy baseless theory, but you never know. Maybe the first brother Marok is a clone of Maul. Maybe under the helmet is a Zabrak. And maybe in this way there is a poetry to what Dave Filoni is doing with Maul Shadow Lord. It's a different voice actor, but they do sound very similar. When Marok opened his mouth in these episodes, AJ Locascio sounded like Maul from the Phantom Menace, Peter Serafinowicz. I know it's a crazy theory, but it could explain why Morgan Elsbeth and the Grey Mothers took such interest in this Inquisitor. Out of all of them, this is the one they chose. You have to wonder why. But at the end of the episode, my friends, he reports back to who I assume is Darth Vader and tells him the rumors are true. Maul is alive. But more than this, he's in league with 2 Jedi. And this is why Vader is going to send the 11th brother to join him. But in the end, I think both Inquisitors are going to fail. And it's Vader himself who's going to have to step in. But let's talk about the big fight. Diodaki and Lawson get split from the others, and they have to go fend off stormtroopers, whereas Devon, with Riley as a witness, has to face Marok on her own. Marok doesn't seem very interested in the Jedi, and so he asks her, "Where is Maul?" The camera shows us he's right behind Devon. He jumps into action, and now it's Maul versus Marok in the underground subway system. And this fight is so important because Maul was protecting Devon. Her opinion of him is starting to change, and as we saw in the conversation he had with Rook Cast, this is something Maul was counting on. And so at the end of the fight, after Devon breaks up the 2 cargo carriages they were fighting on, Maul tells her that she has now seen the face of her true enemy. And this is going to change everything for Devon. She finally realizes the enormous threat of the Inquisitors, but more so Darth Sidious. And she's realizing that unlike with her master, Diodaki, if she joins Maul, she can actually fight and get revenge. But if you're talking about allies, did you guys notice that Maul's Mandalorians are starting to turn against him? They're starting to question his decisions, and I think by the end of the show, they're going to abandon him. Overall though, these episodes, especially episode 6, were so important. I wouldn't say they were my favourite episodes. I did prefer episodes 6 to 5, but they're setting up an insane final 4. Every party, whether it's the cops, whether it's the Force users, have an interesting clash of worldviews. In this episode, it was Lawson's ex-wife who defends the role of the Empire. She insists the regime is there for their protection. I think she's blinded. She doesn't see the truth. But what did you guys think? Share your thoughts on these 2 episodes in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this breakdown and review, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, check me out on socials, and may the Force be with you always.